Britain does country pubs rather well. Thatched roofs and horse brasses glint above the fireplace. Worn wooden tables where locals have gathered for centuries. Log fires crackle on winter evenings while rain patters against leaded windows. The reassuring creak of ancient floorboards beneath your feet. These are the kind of places that appear on chocolate boxes and Visit Britain campaigns. But some country pubs carry histories that locals speak of only in hushed tones. Scattered across these islands are establishments where the landlord pauses before showing you to your room. Bars where regulars exchange knowing glances when strangers mention staying the night. Ancient inns where flickering candlelight reveals what daytime obscures. I have spent weeks examining historic records, local newspaper archives, documented paranormal investigations, and community testimonies to bring you 15 country pubs where locals genuinely warn visitors not to linger after dark. Some are haunted by tragedy, some by violence, some carry a weight so heavy the walls themselves seem to remember. Welcome back to the Cottage Dreams. If you are new here, do tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what comes next. Let us begin with a place that claims to be the oldest pub in all of Britain, the Skirrid Inn in Monmouthshire, Wales. First mentioned in records from 1110, this stone building has stood for over 900 years on the slopes of the Skirrid Mountain. Drive through the village of Llanfihangel Crwcorney on a quiet afternoon, and you might see nothing more than a charming country pub serving real ale. Look closer and the picture changes entirely. It is rumoured that around 180 hangings took place on the inn's staircase. The beam still bears the rope marks worn into the wood by centuries of executions. Judge Jeffreys, known throughout history as the Hanging Judge, allegedly began his brutal career here during the Monmouth Rebellion. Guests climbing those stairs today pass beneath the very timber where condemned men took their final breaths. The activity reported here is not subtle. There are multiple accounts of visitors suddenly dropping to their knees and grabbing their throats as if being strangled by invisible hands. Staff have reported cold spots that move through rooms. Glasses slide across the bar untouched. The surrounding woods carry their own tragedy. In 1700, a servant girl who worked at the inn fell in love with the lord of the local manor. When his wife discovered the affair, she chased the young woman into the forest. The girl's body was found the next morning, frozen to death against a tree. The woods are now called the White Lady Woods because her spirit is still seen floating through the trees in a pale dress. Travelling southwest to Cornwall, we find an inn that sits alone on one of England's most desolate landscapes. Jamaica Inn on Bodmin Moor. Built in 1750 as a coaching inn, its isolation made it perfect for smugglers moving contraband across the county. Daphne du Maurier made it famous in her 1936 novel. But the hauntings were documented long before her book. The first recorded paranormal incident occurred in 1911. A man dressed in old-fashioned clothing was seen sitting on the outside wall. When locals tried to speak with him, he ignored them completely. Then he gradually faded from view and disappeared. This sighting has been followed by consistent reports from staff and guests right up to the present day. In 2004, the television programme Most Haunted filmed an episode here. The production team called it one of the spookiest investigations they had ever recorded. Previous managers have heard conversations in a foreign tongue that some believe could be Old Cornish, a language that died out centuries ago. Visitors report the sound of horses and carts in the courtyard when nothing is there. Children playing and babies crying echo through empty corridors. The moor surrounding the inn stretches dark and treeless for miles. On foggy nights, travellers have reported seeing lights moving across the landscape where no roads exist. From Cornwall, we travel to Gloucestershire, to a building that openly advertises itself as the most haunted place in England, the ancient Ram Inn in Watton under Edge. This Grade 2 star-listed building dates from around 1145. It served first as lodging for workers building the parish church opposite, then as a priest's house, before becoming an inn. The stories here go beyond ghosts. During renovations, the skeletal remains of children were discovered beneath the staircase, alongside broken ritual daggers. The room, known as the Witch's Room, marks where a woman fleeing persecution in the 1500s hid before being captured and burned at the stake. The late owner, John Humphreys, claimed that on his first night in the building, he was grabbed by a demonic force and dragged across the floor. Investigators have reported temperature drops of 20 degrees in seconds. Objects move on their own. Figures appear in doorways and vanish. Heading north to Scotland, we find the Drovers Inn on the shores of Loch Lomond. Dating back to 1705, this remote establishment served cattle drovers moving their herds to market. The interior remains deliberately unchanged. Stuffed animals line the walls. Antique weapons hang from beams. Staff sometimes wear Highland dress. But it is room 6 that draws the most attention. Local legend tells of a family travelling south during a fierce winter storm. They were trying to reach the safety of the inn, but took a wrong path in the blinding snow. The family froze to death on the hillside. Guests sleeping in room 6 have reported feeling an icy presence dripping water onto their beds in the dead of night. The ghost is said to be a young girl who drowned in the nearby river while trying to retrieve her doll. Her body was laid out in that very room. Visitors have woken to find a small figure standing at the foot of their bed, soaking wet and staring. Returning to England, we arrive in the ancient city of York. The Golden Fleece on pavement claims to be the most haunted pub in a city already famous for its ghosts. Built in 1503, the building has accumulated at least 15 documented spirits over 5 centuries. The most active is Lady Alice Peckett, wife of a former mayor who once owned the building. She appears in Victorian dress, wandering the corridors at night. A Canadian airman who fell to his death from an upper window during the World War II has been seen in his uniform. One-eyed Jack haunts the bottom bar, wearing a red coat from the 1600s and carrying a pistol. A Victorian boy who was trampled by horses in the yard still runs through the building. Staff working alone have reported all 15 apparitions at various times. Before we continue, we must understand what connects these places. Rural inns and taverns have been the beating hearts of their communities for centuries. They witnessed deals struck and broken, travellers arriving and sometimes never leaving, justice dispensed and occasionally perverted. It is hardly surprising that dark episodes occurred within their walls. Historic England has documented hundreds of these buildings, preserving not just their architecture, but their stories. A 2023 survey found that around 28% of British adults believe they have experienced something paranormal. That figure rises to 34% among those over 65. Whatever we believe about ghosts, the histories attached to these buildings are real. The deaths occurred. The violence happened. The walls absorbed it all. On the south coast in the medieval town of Rye stands the Mermaid Inn. Built in the 1420s and rebuilt after a French raid in 1420, its cellars contain tunnels that once connected to buildings across the town. In the 1730s, the infamous Hawkhurst gang used these tunnels for smuggling. They would sit in the bar openly armed, daring anyone to challenge them. A young maid fell in love with one of these cutthroats. When the gang feared she knew too much about their operations, they murdered her. Her ghost still walks the public rooms on the ground floor. Guests have reported waking to find a woman in period dress standing in their room, then passing straight through the wall. In Wiltshire, the Red Lion at Avebury holds a unique distinction. It is the only pub in the world located inside a prehistoric stone circle. The stones surrounding this building are over 4,000 years old. The pub itself dates from the 16th century. The most famous ghost is Florrie. During the English Civil War, her husband returned home to find her with another man. He slit her throat and threw her body down the well that still exists inside the pub today. Florrie has haunted the building ever since, and reportedly has a particular interest in men with beards. A phantom carriage has been seen clattering through the yard. At least 5 different ghosts have been documented here, their presence perhaps amplified by the ancient stones that surround the building. In a hidden mews in London, the Grenadier began life in 1720 as an officer's mess for the Duke of Wellington's regiment. The story goes that in 1820 a young officer was caught cheating at cards. His fellow soldiers beat him so severely that he died that night in the cellar. Reports of paranormal activity date back to the 1880s. Sudden temperature drops, invisible shoulders barging into customers, footsteps on empty stairs. In the 1960s, a worker was thrown down the cellar stairs by unseen hands. A few years later, a barman watched an army helmet fly off the wall and strike him on the head. Today, visitors stick coins to the ceiling. The tradition says the money helps pay the dead soldier's gambling debts, so his spirit might finally rest. Your Old Trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham claims to be the oldest inn in England, dating from 1189. Built directly into the caves beneath Nottingham Castle, its rock walls were carved by hand over 8 centuries ago. George Henry Ward, known as Yorkie to the regulars, was landlord from 1894 to 1914. He loved his job so much that he apparently never left. Staff report objects moving on their own and a presence that watches from the carved stone alcoves. The Castle Inn in Great Leys, Essex, may be even older. The building claims to date from 1086, and it is recorded in the Domesday Book. Over 100 brave souls have attempted to spend a night in its haunted room. Reports describe furniture dragging across the floor on its own, curtains violently ripped from their rails, and the tortured cries of a woman that prevent any sleep at all. A local witch named Anne Hughes was executed and buried near the pub in the 17th century. Her spirit is blamed for centuries of disturbances. In Tewkesbury, the Black Bear Inn is the oldest in Gloucestershire. A headless man in army uniform drags chains through its corridors. He is believed to be a Lancastrian soldier who died in the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471. Guests have seen him walking through walls where doors once existed centuries ago. At the George and Pilgrims in Glastonbury, a tunnel once connected the inn to the famous abbey. A monk and a local woman used this passage for their forbidden affair. When discovered, the monk was walled up alive in the cellar and left to die. His ghostly figure still appears to guests, particularly women staying alone. Bristol's Hatchet Inn carries perhaps the most disturbing claim of all. Built in 1606, beneath layers of wood and plaster, the front door is allegedly lined with human skin. The pub hosted bare-knuckle boxing, dogfighting, and rat pits. The violence that occurred within these walls over 4 centuries has left something behind that visitors still sense today. Your Old King's Head in Chester dates from 1622. 13. Different ghosts reportedly cause incidents once or twice a week. The sound of children laughing echoes through empty rooms at night. The top floor flat has stood vacant for years because no tenant will stay. Investigators recorded voices saying, "I was told to hang myself and I want to die." Finally, we arrive at the 10 Bells in Spitalfields, London. This pub stands in the heart of Jack the Ripper territory. At least 2 of his victims drank here before their deaths in 1888. But the hauntings are not Ripper related. A Victorian landlord named George Roberts was murdered with an axe. His apparition has terrorised staff on the upper floors. There are darker tales still of a murdered infant that have made mediums refuse to enter the upstairs rooms entirely. So there you have it. 15 country pubs across Britain where locals warn strangers not to stay after dark. Some carry reputations built on documented deaths and historical violence. Others hold mysteries that centuries have failed to explain. Whether the spirits are real matters less than what these stories reveal. Isolation, tragedy, justice and its failures. Communities process darkness into folklore that spans generations. These buildings have stood for centuries. They have witnessed more than any living person can remember. The walls absorbed it all. Please watch the next video that appears on your screen. And do not forget to subscribe.